Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Today, what I want to do is walk you through some new things that you, as an end user, if you're already working with Planning Analytics Workspace, will be able to start working with today, as well as some of the things if you're looking at options for reporting or visualization, ad hoc reporting with some what if scenarios, you can start to explore and take a look at. The other piece of the day, as I go through, is really how to rapid prototype. So taking a file, ingesting it into our workspace and building a model that you can start working with immediately. And then I want to cap it off with kind of infusing planning analytics with some Watson machine learning and AI. For those of you who are data scientists in the room that are very familiar with Jupyter notebooks and Python coding, you can integrate that into your planning analytics environment and leverage that to do your forecasting and all the fun things that you would like to do. But first, I want to start off by looking at the Accelerator catalog. So this is all part of the Business Analytics community page. For those of you who have never been on this before, if you go to community.ibm.com, you will be able to see the IBM community page. But right here, this is what it looks like live. You can go out to the community, you can choose what brand you want to work with, Planning Analytics, Cognos Analytics, all that good stuff. But in particular, we have an accelerators page. The accelerator page, and you can choose what product you're working with, and you can see there's a multitude of assets out here for our different analytics products. But these are these quick starts. If you're looking to do something like territory and quota planning, we have a quick start that you can download into your environment and then just bring in your dimensions, so your customers, your products, your territories, all that, and it's going to have the visualizations and calculations you need to quickly get into territory and quota planning. If you are looking for monitoring COVID cases, and this is a specific to Cognos Analytics, you'll see which of our solutions that these are specific for. Otherwise, if you did go in and do the search in here, they will bring you to just the items that you're looking for. But we've got a ton of visualizations and other content that you can go into, search for it, download it, and start leveraging very quickly into your environment and get you up and running. Within the Planning Analytics Workspace environment, which is we're in here already, you can go to this question mark in the corner, and we have some helps brought into here. So you have the access right to the community, but you can also go out here to what we have for documentation. So if you're looking to find out, well, what's the new features that have come out into our products? So by version here, maybe there's some videos. So how do I do attribute hierarchies or hierarchy types using alternative reorg snapshots? All of that is brought into our environment. When you're looking for help, you're looking for how-tos, you want to see what's the latest and greatest, it's all here under this question mark in the documentation. Also in here, you have quick starts to maybe the Business Analytics YouTube channel, where we have a lot of our recordings having ourselves within IBM or even some business partners who have created content, assets, use cases. All of those are available for you to check out and see how they're leveraging it. And then we'll walk you through even some of these new how-tos and the quick tips, as well as the different use cases. So all of that is available right here at your fingertips. As I said, beyond that, we're going to look at some reporting and analysis. I'm going to open up my Planning Analytics Workspace and show you some examples of ways that you can create a template or create a book that your end users now will be guided through the different tasks or the roles that they need to work with. And now it brings everything together. They can have one cohesive area. Here I've got my application portal. As an end user, I can have this link where if I need to work on my financial summaries and look at my P&Ls, maybe deep dive into a department P&L or investigate my comparisons of actual versus forecast versus budget, I have all of that right here available to me. I do have my dashboard so I can start looking at any of my information, but I also have the ability to set targets, maybe do some planning around capital or contribute to my product plan. All of this as a guided tour for my end user is now going to walk them through a very quick link or a menu option to how they need to get through their day or the tasks that they have ahead of them. So here I'm going to go into my financial summary, and it's going to bring up various P&Ls and visualizations here. I can cycle through my organization if I wanted to. So if I wanted to see just Florida, if I wanted to see my total company, so depending on my access, I have that. And if you notice, as I make these selections, everything is synchronized, so it's updating in real time. Okay, I can cycle through my versions, whether it be actuals or budget. I can see my variances if I need to. All of those are here. As an end user, I don't have to go searching, where do I go to find all of this information? Or, oh, I put it in this report. Well, I got to find that other report that has this information. It's all right here for you. And so you can guide your customers, your internal customers, to where they need to be. And executives even love this. So if you give them just certain selections, maybe these bold topics are what the executives get, then they have the ability to communicate with the team. They can go in and ask questions and chat with the team because we have that chat capability built into our workspace. If I saw an issue here that I wanted to understand, well, what's going on in California? What's going on in Florida? I can enter a conversation and send that to either the full team or an individual and ask that question. I don't have to worry about answering emails or going back looking through notes. It's all integrated into the solution. So now you can collaborate with the team. If I go back, go back into here to my income statement analysis. One of the things that in my role when I was an FP&A analyst is I wanted to understand, well, what's going on with my numbers? How do I look in to see, well, what made up these items in here? So if I'm particularly interested in maybe what's going on in salaries, so I'm going to drill into my payroll, but I want to understand, well, what transactions made that? I can drill right through to my actuals detail and see the transactions from my general ledger that make up this 106,331. So you notice that 106,331, here are all your general ledger transactions. So now you're bringing the capability of deeper dive analytics right into one place for your customers internally in FP&A, in sales, marketing, whomever. But you have now one place for them to go. They don't need to log in to their ERP system to start doing this work and understanding what's going on in here. So having a portal like this, where it brings all of this information together, it gives them that cohesive, collaborative area. Now, beyond looking at their financial information or their operational information, they can start going into their target setting or their planning roles. So based on the persona and the role that you play within your organization, if you are an FP&A and you need to start understanding the actuals versus forecast, the variances, those were the screens we were just in, the ability to drill down and deep dive. But if I'm in a planning role, I want to be able to go in and set my targets. I want to be able to set that initial total company view by my line of the P&L, or I can set it by organization if I wanted to. So if I'm just going to look in here for my top-down target, going into my beginning of the budget, we're getting into that time of year, the powers that be set down the target, said, all right, I want the next year's numbers, I need a top-line growth of 18%. Well, I can easily go in and set that top-line growth of 18% in my target. So if you notice there, all I did was tell the target to increase by 18%, and now my numbers are there. I did it at a total company, but I can also drill down into my organizations and see their component of this. I can also give some direction and text on, well, how is that number going to be achieved? So this increase is going to be driven by new products. So you can now enter text. I don't know if you can see that, but I can enter text now in where my numbers are. So I have the capability as a planner who is setting the targets to give some direction, give some information that will now go along with me or go along to the different teams as they start to look into this information. The other thing is corporate said, hey, I need you to also decrease your overall operating expenses by 4%, but I know that I can't change my salaries. So I'm going to go into payroll here, and I'm going to hold that number static while I decrease my overall operating expenses by 4%. And now you'll notice it's going to make a change to everyone else, but hold salaries and payroll static. So my overall is 4%, but some of these other lines are decreasing at 5% to still solve back to that total of 4. So now I'm easily and quickly going through setting my targets to the team. And again, it can be drilled down into any one of these organizations. If this was by product, you can see the product mix, all of that in here. So those are some easy ways that you can leverage your planning analytics workspace environment to guide your users and your internal customers through their reporting phase or even their planning phase. So they're getting that task-based workflow brought into their environment. You can give them instructions in here if you wanted to. You can embed how-to videos if you needed to. All of those capabilities are available to you within this workspace environment, and you have that write back capability. So that's just a quick view of ways that customers are leveraging the workspace environment today to help get through their day-to-day and have that cohesive, collaborative story. So now that we've seen that, there are some new things that we've put into the environment. So when you're working in your workspace environment, we've made some changes based on requests that have come from customers working in these workspace environments as well as in the Excel, where they want to have some refreshers up on here. So our set editor update, as I'm going through and looking to see, well, which products or which customers that I want to work with, I now can go through and create those custom consolidations, those custom sets and groups. I can also bring in my corporate colors, my corporate font. So I'm going to walk you through that. The ability to run a process. So for those of you who are familiar with planning analytics, you have what they call action buttons. Those execute processes. So if I am looking to load new data, or I am looking to create a new plan, I can create an action button here. It's just like a menu button like we saw earlier, but now it's going to execute something in the background. All of that can be brought right into that workspace. I don't need to go to a different area to do that, as well as formatting the numbers, creating consolidations and aggregations. So I'm not going to show you all of these changes, but I do want to go through here and at least show you some of the set editor updates. So the toolbar has changed. A lot of these things used to be hidden. Now they're going to be, visible to the end user. You have the ability to undo, drag and drop, maximize the screen in here. So let me walk you through this instead of just showing you the PowerPoint. So I've got a report here. I've got my total products. And so let's look at this list here. So I can see my products broken out by parent, child, all the way down to the various items. But maybe I want to make some changes in here. So I can open up my dimension, my editor of the set, and so I can see what I have in here. Now maybe I don't want that item in here, so I want to just delete the 3-liter sedan, and now it's gone from my list. Okay, again, you're not changing what the dimension looks like in your environment. So the total S-Series sedans, S-Series, those numbers are still going to be in there. But if I want to just remove what I want visible in this report, I can just I can delete it. If I said, oops, no, I didn't mean to delete that, I can undo and it'll put it right back into the environment. I can also sort these. So I can sort it ascending, descending, but I have the ability to sort by hierarchy. Okay, so see here, like 2 liters down at the bottom, 3, 4 at the top. I can sort within my hierarchy, and now it's sorting in order, top down, bottom up, however way I want to list those. So you do have that capability of doing those type of things here within your set editor, and now that makes it easier for when the user of this report goes in and wants to look at what's available for a product. This is going to update the list that I see here. I can also take this list and make it just a series here, so I can move items around if I wanted to move this up. So maybe I want to have the 1.8 liter right underneath total. I could do that if I needed to, and then apply that and everybody can use it. Okay, so I've gone through some of the fun things that we have in here, but really now let's create a specific set of car models that are sensitive to, say, price changes. So the first thing I want to do is let me focus on my four-wheel drive. So I can do a search on anything that has four-wheel drive in it. Okay, and here's all my list of four-wheel drive cars. I want to take this list and I want to just bring in all of the specific cars in here, or my products, SKUs, whatever I want. Okay, so when I do that, it's now going to bring in just that search. So I'm going to put this over here and have that as my starting point. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is look for cars that maybe run on premium fuel. So we go in here and I'm going to leverage what we call attributes. So in my product dimension, I have not only the cars listed, but I have attributes of what market am I targeting? What type of engine does this car have? The size of the engine. Maybe what type of car is it? A sedan, a wagon, convertible, and then interior style. Things that our customers externally would want to use to how do they find their product that they like. So in this instance here, I want to find the cars that are going to run on premium fuel. So I would think that that's going to be engine type is going to be equal to premium or performance. So when I do that, now I've got the list of cars that are just performance. So I'm going to add that to my list that is sitting here. Now, if you notice, see how these are all grouped together? Then you have this group banded with gray. It's starting to take my query and banding things together. And so let me make this a little bit bigger so everybody can see what's going on the screen. So now the final thing that I want to do is I want to add cars that are the largest engine type. Okay, so back into my attributes, I know I had engine size. So engine size here, my largest is, I believe, a 5-liter. Yep, 5-liter. So now I'm going to take those items. And instead of hitting this arrow to send it over, I'm going to drag and drop them into my list. So I just drag this right in here, and now I've got my next set of items in my query, and you notice that it's a different banding here. Now, if I wanted to move those performance cars up to the top, because I want to look at those first, all I have to do is drag this list and put it where I want it to be. So now I've got my performance cars, I've got my four-wheel drive, and then I've got my 5-liter engines. I can save this list as performance. I can say this, say, performance cars, or performance cars sensitive to get prices. Okay, and now I've created a list and a subset that I can work with. So I've defined this grouping. And so when I save this and I apply it, now if you look, when I go to this drop down, whereas before it had all of my vehicles based on whether they're a sedan, all that full listing, now I've got my performance vehicles at the top, my four-wheel drive, and then my 5-liters. So I can go through and individually select these and now start to see what's going on. So that's a quick way that you can create a user-defined subset of my product. So something specific that I want to focus on in my reports, or maybe it's something specific I want to focus my FP&A team, my planning team for marketing or sales to. So instead of having them see everything in the list, I just need them to focus on things that are performance-based. So that's how you can go in and leverage your set editor and all the new capabilities in there to make those changes. The other thing I talked about is the ability to customize your corporate colors, your corporate font. So here, IBM, we have the IBM Plex Sans font that I've loaded in. So I can change the way my reports look and the text looks, as well as I can make these color changes. So here, I've got some basic visualizations. All right, if I go into look at the parameters in this, okay, you can see I've got these 8 color palettes available to me. All right, I chose this first color palette, which is 0, and this I can move these around if I wanted to and change the color scheme. But this doesn't really reflect my corporate scheme that I need or the mood that I'm in. So I'm going to close out of this, and to go in and upload these items, go right here to your administration panel. So I went to the administration panel, and over here in settings, you'll see the different themes. So the workbook that I was on, I knew that that was using my default theme. So I can export the file behind it that sets up the different themes and the color fonts. And I'm going to open up that file here in a JSON editor. So I brought my JSON file in that I just downloaded and exported. And here I opened up the different color palettes. So I've got my color palettes in here, and then I'm going to work with color palette 0 because that was the first one. And like I said, you can bring in your corporate colors, or depending on your mood. Until my network locked up, I was feeling giddy and pink, so I'm going to move this over here to pink because I was feeling pretty. So maybe I want that to be the first color. Then I can go really wild and crazy and put a bright yellow as my second. And I can continue down this. So as I make that change, I've got the color picker. And if you knew what your corporate colors were and you knew that information, you could type this in here. And depending on what you use for the JSON editor, some of them even have, you can type in the red, green, and blue values in here, or they just have this slider. You can even change the gradient, all that fun stuff. But I went in, I made these changes. So now I go in, I'm going to save that back to disk. And when I go back here, I can now take that new JSON file that was just saved. So here it is, that default theme. And I can upload that right into here. So I'm going to upload my theme. It brings up the little wizard here. I drag it, drop it in place. And now I have my theme colors in here. I can also add new fonts. So if I was looking to put in like my IBM custom font, I can do the same thing where I select this add custom font, drag and drop the font file, the ODP or whatever font file you have, and now it makes it available. Okay, so here it is. It's already loaded in here. Okay, so if I go back to my custom font demo. So you see here is the original colors, right? Now, when I reload this book, it's now going to take into account the new colors that I just had put into place. Okay, so now here's I'm feeling pretty in pink. I can also add in additional palettes. So remember earlier, I only had these 8 palettes. So you can see here the one I just changed, but now I added one in here because I wanted shades of blue being in here. So I just added a 9th palette. While we were in that JSON editor, I copied a palette and pasted it as a new one and then changed the colors. You can do all of those type of things in that editor. And then when you upload, it brings it right back into the mix here. Okay, so those are ways that you can make these types of changes. The other thing I can do, remember I said I brought in the font. So I'm going to change this visualization back to an exploration so I could see my report here. But now when I look at this, I can look at my text properties. And notice here now I brought in my IBM font. Okay, so there's some preloaded fonts in here, but when you bring your piece, your font specific in, it's now available on this list, and you can have an italic and regular, you can change the size, all that good stuff. So all of those capabilities are now bringing you closer to having more of a customized look and feel, especially if you have your corporate reports or you have a corporate theme that you need to follow. You don't need to go and move this into PowerPoint to get that information, and then you can just change it right back to a visualization. And for those of you who've never seen how you go from a report exploration here to a visualization, when you select that in the menu bar, based on the layout of the data, it's going to recommend best ways to visualize this. So this one here, point was a way to visualize it. If I looked at this data, when I do the visualization, it's going to have map, obviously, in there to be one of my selections. Okay, so that's ways that you can go in, make that change. You can save your book, so that way it's now always there. And that's how you can bring in your custom fonts, your custom charts, your palettes. All right, so we spend a lot of time on that, sorry, with my computer acting up. But now, that's great if you have data already existing. But what if you wanted to go in and create something new, all right, and you don't have the data set there? You have the capability of doing what I call rapid prototyping, but really I'm leveraging a file to bring into my environment, and the way that file has the information laid out, it's going to tell me the dimensions of that cube that I need. It's going to have the data in here in the cube. And so I can go in and I can create this from a blank slate. I want to go in here and I'm going to open up my model, create a new cube. Then I'm going to take my file, ingest it through. I'm going to create a view, and I'm going to create some calculations in here. So by the way, you can put these little quick hints out there for you. So first thing I want to do is open up my server, right? And I go right here to cubes, and I'm going to import my data. So I'm going to create a new cube. So I can either work with one that exists and import information in here, or because this is new, I'm creating a new cube. I'm going to take my acquisition from Europe. I'm going to add that file right here into my palette. Now what the system is doing is it's going in and it is looking at the layout and says, okay, I recognize this format is conducive to doing a multi-level import. All right, so I can create my parent-child hierarchies and structures in my environment. So now I know that I have, I believe, 6 dimensions in that list. Okay, let's make this a little bit bigger here so you can see more. Now I can have things that are 1 level, 2 level, 3 level in here. So I have my ragged hierarchies available to me in what I'm creating based on the way this layout is. So I'm going to create my first dimension here, and that was my countries. Okay, I know that my countries have, my lowest level is country. That's going to roll up into regions, which is going to roll up into all of Europe. Now the next dimension is a store type. So I'm going to create that one here. And I know from this information that my store type rolls into all stores. So whereas that last one had a leaf level and 2 roll-ups in it, this one only really has a leaf and 1 roll-up. Okay, so I can have those different levels. Everything doesn't have to have the same number of levels. Same thing with my product. All right, now in product, okay, I've got my product that rolls into product type. That's going to roll here into product category, but I also have one more level that's total products. So I can add a new level in here, and I can just go right to my product dimension and put the total product in here. So as I'm adding dimensions or adding levels, those are easily to expanded in here. So let me put in the time here. Okay, and it's just selecting right down the list. So my time, I've got my month, whoops, I got my month, which is going to roll up into a quarter, rolls up into the year and total year. All right, and then here is that version we were just talking about earlier, the version capability. So this is a dimension that's going to hold my actuals, my budget, my forecast. Okay, and that is just one level. And then I've got my measures. So these are all my different accounts. Okay, and now my file also had data in here. So I'm going to select that column that had my data in it. So now I've got everything I need to take that report or that file and not only build out the dimensions that I want to have structured my cube on, I'm also loading the data and I'm creating the cube. So I'm going to call this Europe sales. I need to give my cube a name. And if you notice, I didn't have this, I wouldn't have been able to go here and hit create cube. So now what's happening is the system went in, it looked at that file, and it loaded it right in. So I can go in here, it gives me a starting point, but nope, I don't want to use that one. I want to go into this cube to show you now it's right here, and I want to add a new view. I can add a new view, I can write some rules to tell the view, the data, how it can roll up calculations and all that. If I'm doing something very specific, I can put those in here and do that, but I'm just going to add a new view. All right, and I'm going to move this around where I want the countries down here. And I've already got my measures, so let's open this up. I've already looked at my actuals versus budget. Maybe for my stores, I just want my high street stores. And I want to only look at, say, my 3G 32 gigabyte product. All right, so I've got all that information, but notice there's no formatting. Within my report, I can highlight the column and I can go in and set a format. So maybe I want the net sales price to be rounded with 2 decimal points. I want the units to be rounded where there is no decimal point in here. Okay, because you obviously don't sell a fraction of a unit. Same thing, cost, I want that to be a comma with 2 decimal points. Okay, and instead of looking at the total year, I just want to focus on January. That makes it look a little bit better. So that's great. I've got my units, I've got my price, I've got my cost, but it looks like it's kind of out of order. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to edit that set like we learned earlier. Okay, and now I want to go in and I want to move units to the top. Okay, so now it's units, price, cost. Starting to sense a theme in here, right? So if I've got my price and I've got my cost, I want to go in and create a margin. So I can work with just these items. So now if I click this box here, I'm going to go right to my cube that I'm working with, open up those dimensions, and I want to go into my measures, and I want to create a new member in here that's going to be my unit margin. So if I go in and edit this dimension, I've got my unit sales, volume, all that. Let's add in unit margin. So, oops, left my capital in there, but I know that margin is made up of price minus cost. So I'm going to put those right here under unit margin. Okay, and now I'm going to go into cost and say that that is going to be subtracted from my sales price. So now when I look at this report and I bring that into here, it's going to be this minus this. Okay, so let me close out here. And now when I look at my measures, unit margin is immediately available to me. So I can put that right back into the mix, and here it is. So it's this minus this. If I was looking at a report and I didn't know how that calculation came about, this one obviously is easy. It's these 2 fields, but maybe it was a calculation where I'm multiplying something or I'm doing a currency conversion. I can go in and do what we call trace the cell. So that tells me this number here is made up of these 2 components. If this was a calculation that relied on multiple variables or pulling in from different data sets, I would see all those listed and I can start expanding this out so I can validate the calculation. But because this is just a simple one minus the other, I just stuck with that. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is I want to create an aggregation in here. So I've got summary in here and I got my calculations. That's all great. But maybe I want to do a margin percentage, and then I want to just do an aggregation of Switzerland and Austria. Okay, so to do a calculation on the fly, I highlight the members of that calculation. And again, I just go right into what's available in my menu, and I'm going to create that calculation. And so here, I'm going to give it a name, and this is margin percent without the capital A this time. And I've already got some pre-built ways to do calculations. So I want to go in and do a percent of, and obviously margin is margin percent of net sales. So I can do that. And now it's going to immediately add it right to my report and format it for me. Okay, so you can now create these type of things on the fly. If you were looking at Q1 versus Q2 and you wanted to see percent change, you can highlight your quarters here and here and do what I just did there. So you can have it be anything that's found in your report. Now, like I said, I want to do a roll-up that is an aggregation of just Switzerland and Austria and have that as my part of my report. So I'm going to keep just this grouping here. Okay, so I've got this as a summary, but I want to go in and highlight these two items. And now, if you notice, here's aggregation. So this is going to be Switzerland plus Austria. Okay, I go in there, and now it's added to my report. All right, and it's gone in and it's put in my new numbers. If I had this where I was looking at multiple different margins in here, it's going to aggregate the margin versus adding them up. That's one of the issues when you just do this as a sum. So if I highlighted these items and just did summary, it'll add those up, and that's not what you want. You want to have this aggregate, so it's going to give you the right margin percentage in here. I can also take this item now, and I can leverage that in my report. And now if I want to swap my product for my stores, there it is. Okay, so let me go in and just format that if you wanted to put that as a percentage. Okay, so I can now do that. And now if you notice, it's already part of my report. So you can create a user-defined aggregation in your information and have that leveraged. And that was a big thing for some of us who are older and using the initial versions of TM1. We used to have the ability to create those user-defined roll-ups, aggregations. You saw me do that user-defined subset before with the performance cars, but it didn't give me a dollar amount, a roll-up of it. How I create the roll-up is what I just did here. And now that's part of my environment that I can open up any report and use this over and over again. Okay, and I close out of that panel here. And that's really how you can take a file and leverage that to now do that rapid prototyping or create something on the fly as you're going through your day, or you're looking to model something new that didn't exist in your ERP system, or maybe you're taking in some new data sources and you want to test it out again. So far, we've gone through, we looked at our reporting books, and we've looked at the ability to move things around, drop down, guide our customers, our internal teams on looking at reporting or maybe looking at planning. We've gone in, created something new with that from just a flat file. But what I want to do next is start to bring in data science. All right, because a lot of people are saying, okay, that's great. You can enter in your future plans. I can use growth factors, whatever, to create my future plan. But what if I want to have my forecast, my next 18 months, 12 months, whatever, be infused with some data science? What if I want to have that looking at maybe my history of my sales, but now correlate that to weather? Or, well, now in this age of COVID, looking at historical trends doesn't work for me. I need to understand what those trends were, but I want to now match that up with what's going on in the different areas of my stores with COVID restrictions. Maybe I can only have my store open with 25% capacity, or maybe I had to close down some locations because they were in a mall and the mall was closed. So I want to start taking some of those external factors and bring those into my thought process and my next forecast, because the way I used to do things just doesn't work anymore. So here I'm looking at my IBM Chem company and looking at my store review, and I can see by geography the different categories of my products. So maybe I want to look at cold and flu in Dallas or New York City, and I can see that information in here. But now I want to see that where it has cold and flu when it has bad weather. So if I make that selection now, I can see specifically updates for just what these products look like and the effect they have in sales when there's bad weather versus if there was good weather. Okay, and if I wanted to see this in Dallas, I can do that. And I can go anywhere in all of my structures and see this. So I can see my starting point. Okay, that's great. I've tied my starting point into an external factor to at least see the correlation between what's going on in my sales today, where the weather is good, bad, how it has an effect on cold and flu versus multivitamins, all that. But now I want to leverage that information, those correlations, to take this and project it for the next time series in my forecast. So here I'm going to go in and run my prediction. And now what's going on behind the scenes is my planning analytics environment is actually reaching out to a Jupyter notebook. And it's integrating it now with this information. I brought in my data set and I'm starting to do my Python coding. So I'm looking at my data frames and merging my historical data with that other data of external factors being weather or whatever. So I can start to see these and model this. And as I go through all of these scenarios and algorithms, all right, I can now have these information points brought back into my planning analytics environment to help me generate this future forecast. So what happened in here was it went in, it read that notebook that we were just looking at here. At the very bottom of that notebook, it came up with what is my future forecast. And then using the Watson Machine Learning API, it sent it from my Jupyter notebook into my planning analytics environment. And now it loads it into this area where I have by product, by geography, I can see what's going on in my forecast. All right. And then once I have all of this, I can also then create my dashboards on here and drill into products if I wanted to, drill into geographies, all that. So it's all now taking that machine learning and the AI capabilities that are found in Watson Studio or in my Jupyter notebooks, leveraging the different libraries to come up with my future forecast, does that regression analysis, the different smoothing exercises, and it takes that model and now brings it in here. And I can set it up that that notebook does the scoring. So it's going to only bring in the highest scoring model. So it's going to look at all these different factors and algorithms. So I can look at my XG regression or tree or whatever algorithm that I want. It's going to pick the one with the highest score. And that's what I want to bring over here. And that's part of the code that I wrote in Python to tell the model what to work with and send it over. So with that being said, that is at a high level, bringing Watson machine learning and infusing AI into your planning analytics environment. Thank you.